keeps you going. It's building a startup. It's like a killing job. Most people tire out in a few years, and then you have the gumption of starting again after 5 years. What's that?
Yeah, I think good question. The simple answer is I don't know. Okay, right? So what makes us do startup one after the other again and again and again? One is I think we are stupid. Okay. You need to be really stupid to become an entrepreneur even once, because with less than 5% chances of success, statistically the odds are against you. And two, also certain love for sadomasochism, to inflict pain on yourself consistently again and again. Okay, right? So that's it.
So who has the more pain-bearing capacity? Meena or you? Of course, it has to be a woman, right?
Yeah, I think it's almost like we have two kids. It's almost like having a baby. Who bears the pain and who has the fun? Okay, right? Who does the maximum amount of work? Who does the least amount of work? That's I would say it's the same with all our startups. I have the idea. I start it off, and Meena builds it, executes it.
So Meena, your comments? Why do you let him be an idea man? He has to execute at some point of time, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't let him go off that easy. It's all very well to say. Yes, I am the person who likes to build teams and really lead them with a lot of passion. But Ganesh has a very, very important role in joining me in the ideation, in getting the investors and then keeping the investors, which is also very, very important, and then exiting them happily. So that's not a mean job. It's very difficult. It requires a huge amount of energy. So it's very well to say it lightly, but the fact is that both of us have a work cut out. But why we do it again and again? There's I think one of the other panelists was saying there are so many problems in India, you can keep solving them, there's no end to it. It's like a bottomless pit.
Right.
So even if you can make a small impact in any way, and I don't claim to be doing any social impact kind of thing, but I do believe that whatever commercial businesses, successes that we create has a very big social impact, and say that's education, now healthcare, or making people's life easier through a number of different startups that we have. Either which way, I do want to leave that little impact on people's lives.
So I want to talk about two different aspects. One is when you you're doing serially every 5 years, every few years, a new thing. I want to understand two different aspects of that. One is the exit, and the second is thinking process when you think about the new companies or venture. So we'll talk a little bit about your growth story as it's unfolding. But before that, I want to talk to you about the exit story of Tutorvista. And I remember this delightful conversation I had with Ganesh in London when we were together. You told me about the role of serendipity in how Pearson sort of bought you. It'll be great if the audience could hear that story from you.
You want me to? Yeah. I think I think one of the important elements for the entrepreneur is obviously constantly looking for funds, raising money, looking for exits, looking for opportunities. So in that, networking plays a very important role. Networking, like events like this, whether you're a speaker or your audience, or meeting up with people. Most importantly, networking really means where you go, interact, spend time and effort without expecting anything in return immediately. Let me give the example that Rajesh referred to. New York Times had featured an article about how personalized services are getting done from India for the US markets. It was a front page story where Tutorvista was featured because we had students from the US being taught by teachers in India. And in that article, they had got a comment from Nandan Nilekani, one small comment about the concept of personalized services being offshored. I didn't know Nandan before that. I mean, we had met in a couple of forums from Bangalore, but we are at completely different levels, so not much of interaction. So when I read that article, I said, I called up Nandan, and said, Nandan, it's great reading your comment on that. I want to meet you. Why don't you just drop in? I want to show you what we are doing. Indian teachers teaching US kids is. It's a different model. He says, Ganesh, that's fascinating, I will come. At that time, he was the CEO of Infosys. He took time to actually come to our center. We took him through, spent 2 hours, showed him, and actually made him even take a math session for a US student, okay, right? So all this was done without expecting any return. I mean, Nandan, as you know, doesn't invest in any company. Now he's an angel investor. So that was, it was effort on his part, it was effort on my part to reach out, to do that and all that stuff. And it so happened, 3 months later, he was sitting with the vice chairman of Pearson in India, a guy called Kozam, and they were talking about how they want to do stuff in India and what is, how they should do it, organic, inorganic. He picked up the phone and called me. Obviously, when Nandan calls, you pick up the phone. You don't say, I'll call you back, okay, right? So you took the phone, pick up. He says, you know what, Kozam is sitting with me. He's catching a flight back in another 2 hours. He has got half an hour. Can you meet with him? I said, sure, okay, right? That's how the first conversation started. Then the chairman, who is chairman of Penguin, John Mickinson, came after 2 months, and he came there and all that. The point that I'm making is, a lot of times for entrepreneurs, what we end up doing, okay, right, is serendipity, okay, right? It's not something. But you have to be there. You have to take the initiative. You have to be there, whether it's an event like this, whether it's a TIE, whether it's other forums, or meeting up people without anything in return. What did Nandan get? Nandan didn't get anything directly there. But when he started UID later, he wanted people to head the analytics team. Analytics, big part of UID. He said, Ganesh, do you know, one of my earlier company's co-founders, a guy called Shankar, okay, right? I referred him to him, and he became a complete star, okay, right? Huge amount of work was done. See how it pays back, okay, right? That's really my learning from it, and obviously it's not the only one. There are several ones, but in the interest of time, I'll stop.
I wanted to refer to this point about serendipity, because the great startup hubs or ecosystems have mastered this idea of engineering, architecting serendipity, right? It's not something just that you can leave to the chance. It's ingrained in the idea of taking chances, right? I think that's the point you were making. So a great story. I think I'll move on now to the next great story, which is what you call growth story. So what was the incubation process? Where are you, Meena, on that? What's the story behind growth story?
Once we had decided to sell Tutorvista, that was in 2011, and we exited 80%, and we were still full-time involved, but we started to look at what next, what are the things that interest us. And that's when we started to work with a number of different ideas and built up teams which were taking those ideas forward. That's when Big Basket, Bluestone, Bookadda, all these companies started to come into being. And what we then started to see is that there's a common set of things that we end up doing for all these companies. With, at one level, it could be strategy, another level, mentoring of the founders, or working with them on technology, marketing, operations. So really there was a common thread about, and so those are the three bigger ones that I'm talking about. And then there were the more smaller startups such as Deliver with a Y in the middle, and Massi India, and then later Online Prasad. These were all companies that started to come our way, and they were, when we started to work with them, were very small. And they needed a lot of common services. So it made sense for us to then see how do we create a platform through which we can actually support these numerous startups in a number of different ways. And as we went along the journey, then of course now we have our healthcare venture, the home-based healthcare services called Portia. Of course, that's something that I'm fully involved in, but still the Growth Story platform now is a fairly very significant player in each of these in terms of providing services. So that is how the whole thing sort of came together in my mind, at least. Ganesh may have.
Yeah, so once I was hearing you, Ganesh, on I think Lightspeed's panel where you were speaking, and And then maybe even last year when we were at GSF, there was this argument between you and my friend Sanjeev about this whole notion of building companies to exit or building companies forever, right? So have you changed your thoughts, or you were of the school that you always think of exit when you start thinking of building up a company? Now, that was a very uniquely different thought for me. Most founders, when they start dreaming of building a company, probably I think they think of either solving a personal problem that they have, or they're thinking of solving a big human problem, and they think of running of themselves, running almost like a family business forever. But you have a very different philosophy around it.
Yeah, I think no. I think this. I want companies to last. So all the 4 companies that we have started greenfield, being the employee number 1, and started with a lot of passion. All the 4 are running today. First one is more than 20 years old, and it's one of the top 3 companies in that sector that applies for all the companies. And I hope I'm able to say this for another 20-25 years. So it's not lasting company, yes, but lasting ownership is the difference that is that I would say. I like to see it like a product. Like a product has got a product life cycle. The companies also have a certain life cycle. They have early stage, they have growth, they have maturity, they have saturation, all of those stages. And each of that stage, the people who manage it, the people who own it, the best people to manage, the best people to own need not always be the same. Of course, you have some examples like Wipro's example, like Dell. Of course, Dell is questionable now, but you have Microsoft where there is a certain thing there. But I firmly believe ownership and management and life cycle, like in any product life cycle, has to be plotted differently. That's my firm belief. Personally, I feel I don't want to be like who's Arjuna's son, Abhimanyu, who went into Chakravyuh. He knows how to go in, but he doesn't know how to get out. Okay, right? Now that can be quite scary. Okay, right? Before I start, I need to know what is the objective, what is going to be the end state, what's the likely exit. Then go ahead and build a great company, a lasting company with all the passion that you can put in. But you need to know how it is. Typically, another example that I'd like to say is when US sent the commandos to kill Osama bin Laden, the first thing is not how are they going to get in to kill. The first thing was how are they going to get out. Okay, right? Because you can always get in another time, but if you can't get out, you are dead anyway. Okay, right? So I have seen that also. I have seen that with many entrepreneurs who get stuck in good, profitable running businesses, but they just are not able to get out. It's not a basket case. It's not dying, but it is not optimal. It is not giving the best returns of the time, but they do it. Again, that's a personal philosophy. When I do plan to do multiple exits, my views are not changed. And one of the ways I do it is by ensuring that we have right alignment of everybody, be it the investors, be it the employees, so that we are going to create value, we are going to monetize, we are going to make hell of a lot of money for all of us.
So you have the spirituality of a VC, right? When you start thinking, in the sense of like, people fall in love with their creations, even the faulty ones. In your case, your companies have, when you exited, created profits, and they were running well. You also fall in love with what doesn't work, right? And you don't give up, and many times. But I think it really requires a very evolved state of spirituality to let go of things.
Now, the only spirit that I know is of the drinking kind, which I missed yesterday. But other than that, I have no spirituality.
So you have just cold, calculated exit, return, IRR in mind?
No, not really. If you build, if you plan your macro thesis correctly, that you want to exit, which means it has to be valuable to somebody. It can't be a lifestyle company. That's my philosophy. People can build lovely lifestyle companies that's as much entrepreneurship and as much fun for people. I don't like that fun. It's like I like playing tennis. I don't like playing squash. So I firmly believe that if you are looking at that, it cannot be a lifestyle company. There has got to be scale. It need not be profitable really, but it has got to be scale. And you need to build something that someone, whether it's the public markets or a potential investor, international, domestic, will lust after. Okay, when will you get disproportionate valuation? When somebody lusts for it. Okay, right?
Create demand.
Okay, create demand. Create demand. But demand can come either because of profit or just a multiple, or more, in most of my cases, it didn't come because you created a unique asset, which for a big guy to create, remember, it has got to be a big guy, okay, right? Because otherwise he cannot write a check. Tutorvista example, $213 million, at that time valuation was about 1,000 crores. Now, Indian companies don't have 1,000 crore cash to write a single check or a wire transfer to be able to give it. So you need to create something that big guy with big pockets will be able to value, lust for. Then you'll get it. Or it could be IP also, if it's multiple that is there.
That's another thing I sort of have learned from him over many interactions. He's always encouraged me to think big. What is that?
This is really big. I'm very happy you followed, whether it was because of that advice or this, but you're doing it.
Give a message to the people here. Well, I think somewhere along the grind of last 5 years, 10 years of venture grind, the startups here have not sort of rising to the definition of bigness that we see in the Silicon Valley and elsewhere. Why is that? How do we overcome that? How do we become big in our dreams?
No, I think one is having role models, seeing successes, seeing exits will motivate people. In India, we did not have a Silicon Valley kind of ecosystem. I mean, it's good. We have seen Just Dial going public, great. We have seen Redbus getting $100 million plus valuation. We have seen Tutorvista $213 million valuation. These are all companies which started from nowhere in 5 years are able to do that. I think that is very important. The second also, Rajesh, I think that big doesn't have to be like Silicon Valley. Even if you take Silicon Valley, okay, right? People talk about billion-dollar companies. There are hardly 25 to 40 billion-dollar companies, okay, right? I mean, you can create a very good 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, $50 million company, but it cannot be 1 million, half million, okay, right? The problem in the Indian ecosystem, in my opinion, is lack of real good role models in large numbers to be able to spur you on. And two, our fear of failure. We don't want to fail. Now, it's a risk-reward equation. If you're not willing to take the risk, okay, right, you're not going to get that mega return. Be it the case of product companies versus service companies, or trying to do it at smaller scale, not trying to do that. I think that mentality is slowly changing, okay, right? But it's ingrained in our more conservative, middle-class, typical ecosystem.
So I want to...
Over a period of time at work, we found areas that each of us have very good strengths on, and sort of keep the other one at bay in the other. But
we do fight, right?
Yeah, but we do fight.
Right.
But the thing is that because we worked so long together, we have a very healthy respect for the other person's view. So we may fight, we may get angry, we may get upset, but then understand that when the other person is saying there's a logic in it.
Who makes the first move to reconciliation? He or you?
I think I do.
You do. So what, he sulks, or what does he do?
Yeah.
Even at work?
No, not
there.
Not
there is
work.
like IRR seeking, right? Great.
Yeah, no, at work normally we don't have any big eruptions at the workplace.
Or your third co-founder plays the conciliatory role?
No.
No, he doesn't?
No, not that way. I mean, I don't need a third person to do the conciliation. We can do it ourselves. But yeah, but it's not just the two of us. We have a co-founder in most of our cases, and the fight can be between me and the other co-founder also, and that's okay. In fact, I do believe that a team which doesn't have healthy fights is actually a suboptimal team. Then you're not really pushing the boundaries of each other and also of what you're trying to do. If everybody agrees, then you're in serious trouble.
Absolutely. I've seen three of you in motion and having your own thoughts and thrashing it out. It's like intense. It's a very intense thinking process that goes between the three of you.
Yeah.
So with that note, I want to thank you for your time, and I know you're in a hurry. Fantastic conversation. Thank you.